Welcome to Unlocking Catholic Literature video version. I hope you guys enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe, and let's get to it right now. So to get a little bit of recap of what we've gone over so far, we're talking about joy, we're talking about the gospel, we're talking about sharing it, we're talking about where and what that looks like to be in community and sharing that, sharing from the heart, so beautiful, and making sure that's primary. The heart of the gospel is primary, and the secondary aspects of the faith are secondary. Of course, it makes sense. And to make sure that our heart should be broken for those who don't know Christ and for those who are poor. There is such a close connection between the poor and our faith. And that leads us into chapter 2, part 1, and Pope Francis is covering on economics and the poor and the terrible things that are within that. And he starts off by saying that it's so important that he wants all of this in this book to be applied to everything, to our lives, to the churches and communities that are around the world, and that our approach should be through the Holy Spirit and discern through the Holy Spirit and be a missionary disciple. And he says that we should be very weary of the evil spirits and the good spirits. And he's just going to talk about some bad things that are happening, some areas in which could make it difficult for us to share the faith. And he says that, well, he starts off with the first challenge, which would be exclusion. And he says that we live in a society which it is difficult to live with dignity, to live with respect. There's such a lack of respect, and there's this exclusion that is happening, and it goes with the commandment, thou shalt not kill. But in our society, which we live in, there is killing in the fact that we are excluding so many people. And he even goes as far to say that there are people who are exploited, and that's terrible. But it's even beyond that. It's beyond being exploited. It's being rejected, being considered a leftover. And he says that some people will argue that with the current socioeconomic system in which we live in, with the free market in certain countries, that just goes away. But he's saying that's a little naive to think that, because you're judging it on the good in people and how this economy thrives on people who are rich to give to the poor. But he says that we become apathetic in this type of economy because we say, well, I tried my hardest and I got this much money. I don't really care about the people who are a little bit poor, or the poor, because they have their own chance. And he says we go into this idolization of money, and we want more, and the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And there's a terrible influx of debt and interest, and countries and people can't even pay out of their own pockets. They're going into debt and they're accumulating interest. And with this comes corruption. With this comes tax evasion. And there's this thirst for power and more money. And with that, ethics are just thrown out the window. No matter in which direction people can go, the environment or any other area to get more money, they'll do it. And ethics is thrown out the window. People don't care about the poor. They don't care because they just want to make more money. And what's the point of ethics if I'm not getting anything out of it? And he says a quote from St. John Chrysostom, which is, not to share one's wealth with the poor is to steal from them and to take away their livelihood. It is not our own good which we hold, but theirs. And he calls for a financial reform. Pope Francis calls for a financial reform in which money serves us and does not rule us, because in the current state in which the economy is running now, it is ruling people. As you see, people are just wanting more and more and more. The poor people are just left behind, and the rich get increasingly richer. And he's saying he just wishes for an economy to change in which people are favored, and it's humans that are being served through money. And he's saying with this gap that is created through people being excluded, with the gap of money and the economy, that this is an increase in violence. There's an increase in violence globally. And even though there are programs and resources that can be placed to try to guarantee tranquility, it doesn't really work. And really, there's a root problem. The root problem is the socioeconomic system, and the root is evil, is not just, is unjust, the economy, how it is run at the moment. And he says that this economy promotes consumption and more consumption, and you get more money and you consume, and there's breaks. The social fabric is broken. And some people are just comfortable with blaming the poor, blaming poor countries, and generalize that if people were more educated, if there was more education, this would all be better. And his heart is saddened for that fact. And this is how he hands off the first section of the first chapter, and just this area in which there is a tear, and it definitely hinders evangelization. And just to cover from the beginning, we're talking about the joy of the gospel, and the new evangelization is marked by joy. We don't have that joy because we're caught up in the world. We need a relationship with Jesus. Our lives are then changed in this relationship. We want to share that with others, spread the joy, goodness spreads, and we share that with others. We receive life. There's newness. Let us be humble in the newness. There should be newness. And many areas in which we evangelize in the church. We evangelize those who are baptized but no longer believe, and especially primary, those who do not know Christ. And when we're sharing the gospel with them, make sure that the heart is shared first. The heart of the gospel, Jesus' death, God's love, and his invitation for us to act out of that love to the entire world. And that secondary aspects of the faith will be coming after that. And if we discuss a secondary aspect of the faith, that comes with a bed of the primary heart of the gospel, and then the secondary aspects will come on later, and talking about a community in which evangelizes, and the church is a central hub in which people will come to receive life, receive the Eucharist, and then go out, be formed, and then go out into the world to proclaim the good news. And he ends it off with saying, my heart is broken, and your heart should be broken too. Our heart should be broken for the knowledge that people feel secure in these routines which leave the poor behind, and the knowledge that there are poor people and there are people who do not know Christ, who are all alone. And he goes into this second chapter most fittingly with the problems which arise, and certain problems within the world which could hinder evangelization. And he goes into exclusion, as well as the economy system, which leaves the poor people behind and leaves us apathetic towards helping them, and we exclude them beyond the point of exploitation to the point of not caring at all. And that's to where we are now. Thank you so much for listening to this video version of Evangelii Gaudium, the joy of the gospel. I will see you next time, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's keep this going. See you next time.